imagine your parents come along and they're like, oh, this is my trans daughter. There are only specific cases, specific like types of contexts where that even matters, right? Why can't you just be like, oh, this is my daughter? No. Like, this is my daughter who used to be my son. Why is that always like added onto it when talking about trans people like that? It is so frustrating. Genuine question, as a trans woman, I have thought about this sometimes. I've tried to moderate my feelings about having to be perceived as cis as possible 24/7. But I don't know, I can't help but feel a slight ache when, just because I'm trans, people feel the need to add that I'm trans to everything. Like trans artists and using they, them at every turn. Like I raised the trans flag and I'm proud, but it feels like some forget I'm just me. That makes sense, probably not adding a lot of context to this. I made like a video about basically talking about the othering that is like happening. That they're using, you know, language differently for trans people than they do for cis people. Something called degendering. Basically removing gender as like a variable in order to other us. And I called that out and I got like a lot of shit for it because, you know, all of them are like, well, but that's not transphobic. Using they, them pronouns for you is not transphobic because it's gender neutral. Oh, you should be thankful that I'm not like being called he, him. But it's like part of a bigger problem. And I hate that people still don't understand what they're doing, or like they're basically just faking ignorance and being purposefully malicious. But they are just like trying to hide it, and then they're gaslighting you when you like point it out, because then it's like, oh, actually, I just put you in the box male or female. Humans should just put each other into the category male or female, and then they don't want to offend trans people, so they use they, them. And you always said that like they, them is actually not a bad thing. So now we're doing it to you, and you are not happy with it. And it's like, well, the point is that you're like really consistent when you do it for trans women, trans men, but you don't do it for like non-binary people whose gender pronouns are actually they, them, you know? You're never really consistent with that. But like my pronouns aren't like he, I mean she, or they, them. Like these aren't my pronouns. And as a trans woman, I don't want to be seen as a trans woman. I just want to be seen as a woman, and I want to be talked to and about like people talk about cis women. That was like the whole point of the video that I made regarding like degendering and so on. That was like the entire point. I don't want to be othered. I don't want to be like a subcategory of woman. I want to be a part of society, and I want language to reflect that. This is not speech policing. This is showing me basic human decency. And if you're an ally, if you think that trans women are women, but women with an asterisk, then you're not a ally. That is still transphobia. Yeah, it's like always with an asterisk. No matter what you do, it's always like you're not just a woman, you're just a trans woman. The same with like removing gender as like a component when like talking about trans women as like biological male, right? You're just like invalidating our gender identity, and you're making us out to be something other when you don't do it about cis people. The liberal, it's not as bad as you're saying it is. Stop overreacting logic. Yeah, it's like, well, you should be thankful that we're not calling you a man. You should be thankful that we're just calling you a trans woman. Like, I had comments, you know, I was like, oh, trans women are women, trans men are men. And I had someone reply to that with like, trans women are trans women. Trans women are trans women. Women are women. And it's like, yeah, I mean, trans women are trans women, but like trans women are women. We're just women. Like the adjective doesn't change the noun. But like by making us out to be like a separate category, it is just like part of like isolating us, othering us. And it's so frustrating to deal with that. And I think it's worse to explain to like an ally that like continuously referring to us as they, them, as something other, while having no issues with using she, her pronouns for cis women, how that is like a bad thing. How that makes you feel like you're not valid enough. How that makes you feel like you're an imposter. How you don't feel like you belong, you don't fit in. They don't want to understand how this is like painful to us. It is even more painful is someone straight up just like calling me a man and using he, him, which also like sucks, you know? Don't get me wrong, like it having to continuously deal with like the abuse and so on sucks. Like constantly having your identity challenged and being questioned the entire time. It sucks. It's painful, but at least I can just like brush it off and I can like label, oh, you're just transphobic. Oh, but I'm like upholding the biological reality and the truth. Like that's just transphobic. And a lot of people can agree like, oh, you're just being transphobic. But when it's like a little bit more subtle, when it's just using gender neutral pronouns exclusively for you and just adding continuously when talking about you with like the label trans, like imagine your parents come along and they're like, oh, this is my trans daughter. There are only specific cases, specific like types of context where that even matters, right? Why can't you just be like, oh, this is my daughter? No. Like, this is my daughter who used to be my son. Why is that always like added onto it when talking about trans people like that? It is so frustrating. People abusing my preferred pronouns to a trans woman is terrible. Yeah, and then I also get like the treatment of like, well, if you want to get gendered correctly, then you shouldn't whine about it and you should just like stay quiet and you should actually be thankful and you should be very respectful to the people. And then they are more inclined of using your pronouns. It's like, so I have to bend the knee and I have to appeal to these people so I don't get constantly my identity challenged and invalidated. I have to be one of the good trans people, the one who is like basically submitting to fascists, trying to cater towards them so I don't get like abused as much. But they still, you know, invalidate my identity and other me using certain language. And it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me how they get away with like weaponizing these things, and liberals, you know, all of the centrists, the apolitical people are like just downplaying it and being like, oh, this person just didn't know your pronouns. Oh, this content creator making 2 videos about you, they just like didn't know your pronouns. Oh, you're just like being upset. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. This doesn't actually matter. If I would get called they, them, then I wouldn't care at all. And it's like, you don't have to constantly prove to people that you are really who you say you are because your biological sex aligns with your gender identity. People are weaponizing my identity, my pronouns against me, and I have to like try to be thankful and like be respectful to them, never say anything, never be too confrontational, otherwise I'm getting abused even more. How does that make sense? How do people like look at that and they're like, yeah, that is okay. That is not transphobia. No. Transphobia is when this person says that you should die for being trans. That is the only transphobia that exists, right? Like it has to be straight up being said that they don't respect me as a woman and they don't want me to exist. Then I can call that transphobia. But no. Actually, then it's just like someone's opinion and I shouldn't go against someone's free speech because that is just like speech policing. Actually, you're oppressing them by making them say words that they don't believe in. By calling you your chosen name and your pronouns, you're actually worse than Hitler. That is the stuff that I get hit with. And these people are just like, okay with that. Like, what? If you can't do the bare minimum research on a person to see their pronouns in their bio, you shouldn't be making videos about them? Yeah. Be kind to the oppressor with a boot on your face, otherwise they might do worse. Exactly. Oh, you were always pushing the line. You were always asking for too much. Weren't you happy with like a gay marriage? Now you want the trans people to actually be featured in Disney movies? Transphobia for those who don't want to be seen as transphobic, basically, yeah. And that is like always the problem, is like we can tell what is happening, we can point it out, but these people aren't affected by any of it, and then they're just like being in denial, or just like, you know, saying that you're exaggerating. Oh, you're just triggered snowflakes. Right-wingers just say the quiet part out loud, yeah. And liberals just like hide behind the things that they're saying because like they're also right-wingers. As a progressive leftist creator, I hate liberals. I hate liberals so much because they're always like that. I hope this maybe answered your question. And that while it's not even a big deal, just listen how someone wants to be gendered, say alright, do it, done. But no, they have to cry just because they get told they're constantly getting misgendered hurts. The thing is, like, they don't view trans women as women. They don't view trans men as men. They don't view non-binary people as valid. And they think they can, like, compromise. They can just, like, hide that. But then they get called out on it, and then they freak out. Because, like, if you constantly use they, them for someone who doesn't have their preferred pronouns as they, them, and then they're like, hey, you know, we're having a girls' night, and you constantly refer to me as they, them, and you constantly talk to me, you know, just exclusively referring to me as like a trans woman and a trans girl. Can you stop that and just like view me as just the other women? And if your response is like, yeah, but like, you should be thankful that I'm not actually excluding you and using he pronouns. And it's like, you're already excluding me by not viewing me as a woman. You're already excluding me by not treating me like the other women. And I can tell. Everybody can tell. It's a problem. And then, you know, a good response would be like, oh, my bad. Maybe I have some internalized transphobia to get over. Maybe I need to like do some self-reflecting and actually consider you as valid, instead of reducing you to like gametes, and the fact that you were born male and having to have transitioned, you know, is still making it difficult for me to view you as valid enough. Maybe I should do some self-reflecting and get like over that. No, it's like, that's speech policing. And then they're like, oh, why can't we just agree to disagree? Why can't we just like agree to disagree on the fact that I don't view you as a woman? Why can't we just like agree to disagree that I don't perceive you as a valid human being who is deserving of basic human rights and a decent treatment? Why can't we just like agree to disagree and still be friends? It's never about like shoving it into, you know, anyone's face. It's literally just like, you were visible, you were included, you were normalized. That is their problem. You know, just listen to this. It's ridiculous. Like, agree to disagree is for arguments and debates on human rights. The only time liberals agree to disagree is with fascists and how to oppress people. Real. It's always like the left who has to like concede to fascists. It's always us, you know, it's always the minority who has to be like thankful. Because like, if we're too loud, then we're making it worse, right? If we're just like overstepping a little bit, if we're making them a little bit too uncomfortable, then they're just going to like take away the little that they gave us. So we should be thankful. I hate it. I hate it so much. Everybody hates